to be back. Welcome to Passion Talks. I'll request everyone to please keep your mic on mute. Right. So today we have with us very, very special guest. As I was telling to Kamya earlier, last week we had a person who had done 500 marathons, and she is a 50-year-old. And Kamya, we'll ask her only. I'll not tell the age because once I tell since morning, there are a lot of people who have asked me, what's her actual age is. So it's a great honor to have Kamya on the stage today, because the kind of things she has done, I've never met anyone, and I'm extremely nervous because, such a young person, I don't want people to miss out anything from her story, and I'm sure we're going to have a great time. The format is going to be same, 40 to 45 minutes we'll be listening to her, asking questions, and then last 15 minutes will be Q&A. Anybody has got questions, please feel free, keep writing on the chat box, we'll be asking her. And even after this time, if you miss out on anything, we'll request Commander Karthik and Kamya to address them subsequently, right? Will you do it, Kamya?
Anytime.
Great. Okay, so we'll take the ball rolling. And Kamya, welcome to the show. Welcome to all our guests.
Thank you so much.
First question, how did it all start? Yeah, Kamya, we are all ears for you.
Yeah, could you just repeat?
Yeah, okay. So the question is, at 12 years, I missed out. Okay, at this age, once you're in front of us, generally people are most occupied with their studies, and that's about it. These days, as you know, everybody's locked inside. How did it all start from only studies to expeditions, mountaineering, right from scratch, wherever you want to start?
So for me, it's actually never been only studies. So I started trekking like in the Sahyadris when I was 3, and around that time, my father went for his mountaineering courses and started doing expeditions. And he used to just go missing for about a month. So I used to ask my mom, why did he keep going back, and what was there that attracted him in the mountains. So when I was about 7, my mom, said that we will go for a trek and find out why dad keeps going back. So that's how my trekking and mountaineering journey started. And like my parents say that ever since they were in school, my dad was always athletic, and my mom was more on the cultural side. She used to be part of all the dance and music. So I guess I got stretched on both sides. So I learn a lot of traditional dance and music, and also I'm here with my mountaineering.
Awesome. So to tell all the viewers, we have Commander Karthik with us. Commander Karthik is in the Navy, and then he's a mountaineer, and the courses which he was referring was the basic course. So Commander, just tell us, which year did you start your basic course, from where, and then how did it all start from doing on your own to getting Kamya to do into all these things?
Hello everybody, I'm Commander Karthik. My mountaineering journey started pretty late, very late if compared to my daughter. I went for my basic mountaineering course when I was about 30 years old in 2009. So that was my first step into the Himalayan territory. I went to HMI, and that's when we were posted in Lonavala, and Kamya was just about 3 years. So I thought it's a good time to, it has always been, the mountains has always been there on my mind, and I got some time finally. So I went on a month's leave to HMI. After that, I got hooked to it. Did my advanced course in 2012. Then did a couple of expeditions on my own with my friends, whom I made in the mountaineering course. And as luck would have it, I could convince people in the Navy also to help me, give back whatever I learned in the courses in the Navy. So I got to do more and more expeditions. So I did about 5 or 6 expeditions in the Navy at that time.
Wow.
Slowly we built a team almost towards climbing Everest.
Right.
And thanks to what the Navy allowed me to do alongside, I never realized that there was another mountaineer budding who was
Exactly.
just silently watching me do all these things, had all the questions to ask her mother.
Right.
And thanks to my better half that she fed the right answers probably.
Very right. True.
That,
So that's why we say, if you teach a child something, they don't learn it. But then if they see you doing it, that's where the best learning comes from. So Kamli, in your case, when did it shift from, Lonavala to outside? Which was the first step you took and which was the first expedition? Which
So,
year?
as I said before, like we used to, like when my dad went for mountains, I asked my mom, where did dad go? So, like we were posted in Lonavala at that time, and Duke's Nose was a hill that was just in our backyard. So my mom used to point at Duke's Nose and say that dad is just beyond that. So I used to always believe that the Himalayas were right beyond Duke's Nose. So I started climbing it,
Nice.
and when I was 7 years old, I wanted
Okay.
to find out exactly why my dad kept going back again and again. So
Right.
my mom said that okay, we'll go for a trek and find out what is there in the mountains that attracts dad so much. So that's when I went for my first trek, which was to Chandrashila Peak in
Wow.
Uttarakhand. So I was 7 years old.
Nice. Oh, wonderful. So now we have one of our friends with us. He's a good friend of ours, and he's got lots and lots of knowledge. And he's been trying to go to Chandrashila for some time. So he keeps asking me, Romil, yaar, ab nahi hoga. But then I'm sure once he's listening to you, he sees a 7-year-old going to Chandrashila. I think then a 60 or 70-year-old can go to Chandrashila as well. Amazing. And then tell us the journey after Chandrashila. You liked it, and then I'm sure you must have gone crazy doing it because then only you would go. Otherwise, so what was the next step after Chandrashila?
So after Chandrashila, I just got hooked to climbing, and the next year we took a few friends and family, and we went for a trek called Harkidun.
Okay.
And right after that, me and my mom went and climbed Kedarkanta. Then we did
Wow.
Rupkund, and Rupkund was the first trek I did with dad, and that earned me the ticket to Everest Base Camp.
Oh,
So, after EBC in 2017, I did 3 big climbs. So I did Stoke Kangri, and that was just 3 days before my 10th birthday. And
wonderful.
so Stoke Kangri, and after that we, learned about the Explorers Grand Slam, and we wanted to climb the highest peaks in all the 7 continents.
Hole, hole, hole. Let the thing sink in because I want to tell the viewers, the way she's saying, don't get carried away by these things. It's not easy. I've been to Stoke Kangri. That was my first peak, and I had a very, very difficult time. So people who are listening to Kamya don't think that she's a young girl, she can do it, we can do it, because I made that mistake. So everybody told me, Stoke Kangri is a trekker's peak and all. No peak is a trekker's peak. Anything can turn southwards anytime. So it's very, very good to hear stories like this, but then go slowly. So after Everest Base Camp was after your Harkidun, Kedarkanta and Rupkund, right? How
Yeah.
was the Everest Base Camp trek? Because a lot of people, I've seen a lot of college students, they also feel hesitant. Kaise karenge? How was the Everest Base Camp trek?
So yeah, Everest Base Camp was a really good experience for me because it was my first trek outside India, and
Right.
there was a lot of special things. So firstly, I would like to say that it was the first time I actually saw Everest, and that didn't come easy. We had to go through 5 days of really tough trekking, and all through the trek it was fully different terrains every day,
Right.
and the trek was mostly alongside the Dudh Koshi River,
Right.
and there were a lot of bridges where you keep crisscrossing the river every time, at least 10 times a day. Yeah.
Wow.
And like our guides, so basically every day we used to go down to touch the Dudhkoshi river and then climb up again. And this used to
Wow.
happen every day. And every day we would ask our guides, how is the route going to be today? And they used to be like, "Aaj Nepali flat hai." So Nepali flat, you keep going up and down. That's what they call
Right, right.
Nepali flat. And
That's true.
like climbing with my mom was a really good experience. And
Right.
during one of our acclimatization treks, we got to see Mount Amadablam, and the guide
Right.
told us that it's a very ironic thing that Amadablam literally translates to mother and daughter in Nepali. So
Right. Wonderful. And it's a beautiful peak. I mean, the whole feel of Ahmedabad there is amazing. Ma'am, sir, you were also there with Kamya on EBC trek, Mrs. Karthik.
Yes, yes.
Oh, very nice. How was your experience?
It was good. It was actually 14 days of treacherous trek. So you're walking the route, and always being an elder. For her, she was a kid, so she didn't realize that you have to walk back all these way the same route again back to
Very nice.
Lukla. So as an elder, I think that kept playing on my mind, and then I said, okay, you have to conserve your energy and have the strength to go all the way to EBC and probably return back also. But she was enjoying, and the view, the serenity of the mountain was always there. So it was a beautiful trek, a
Yeah, I'm
different
sure.
culture to be in. So I also
Yeah.
thoroughly enjoyed the entire process.
And that's a great feeling. I mean, I'm sure she would have enjoyed. Otherwise, once people like, I mean, we had also gone, so we never used to go to the river and come back because same thing, we used to conserve our energy for the later days ahead. Right. So what after EBC? Tell us that story now.
So after I did EBC, in 2012, my father climbed Stoke Kangri for the first time. So
Right.
he went with a friend, and we basically had a family holiday so that he could acclimatize before they went on the climb.
Very
And
nice.
me and my mom dropped my dad and his friend at the roadhead. And that time I asked my dad, when can I climb this peak? And he
Okay.
told me that I could climb when I was ready. And after I did EBC, I guess my parents felt that I was finally ready, and we we started planning towards doing Mount Stokangri. And yeah, that's
But Karthik, I mean, you've been to Stokangri before you took her, and I'm sure you would agree it's not as easy as you initially might think. So, how was that decision of taking your daughter? Because it gets risky, children are children. How was that? Tell us.
See, my first experience on Stoke Kangri was actually disastrous.
Exactly.
I went in the winters of 2012.
Oh,
Fresh from advanced mountaineering course, you think you have learnt it all.
correct.
So I thought, okay, Stoke Kangri trekking peak. I've been to 5,600 earlier, so 6,100 should be the next progression.
Correct.
But it was really bad. I almost lost my life because there was
Oh my
nobody on
God.
the mountain when we went. It was end October, early November,
Right.
and we managed a guide and a cook on our own and went on the expedition.
Okay.
And my partner was not feeling well, so he returned back on the summit walk.
Oh my God.
They insisted that I would stay back and requested my guide to come back and take me to the summit. All that was a big learning
I'm sure.
on the bad note.
Yeah, that's true. But then, if you have a bad learning, how did it translate into taking your daughter next time?
But what that bad learning did was give a lot of, it made me more humble. And it told me that you need to really plan well logistically if you need to do a climb. And that laid the basics for all my climbs thereon. And even, okay, the initial treks of Kamya were for fun. And actually to let them have their time in the mountains when I could have my time in the mountains myself. But after that, when we trekked Rupkund, I realized that yes, she had the temperament to climb in the
Okay.
mountains.
Right.
She wasn't too excited in the mountains. She would keep her calm,
Okay.
and she had strong legs and a level head on her shoulders.
Right.
She would tell us if she was not well. That is one main
Correct.
thing which a parent should have confidence in the child, because a lot of times uh, there could be a lot of pressure on the child,
Right.
and that shouldn't play on the child when she has to take a decision against what she went there for.
Correct.
So if that confidence is there, that okay, if my child is not well, she will tell that I'm not well, then you can think of taking the harm's way,
Very
because
nice.
it's more harm's way.
That's absolutely right. You need to have that communication going, because the moment it stops, stakes are very, very high. Unlike in planes or at home. So
Yeah.
I'm sure the children who are listening to this must pay attention to what is being said. It's not easy whatever is being whatever she's telling, and then it gets difficult the moment you actually do it on the mountains.
And,
What after
and
so far?
you need to have your logistics in place. That's the and I had my plan in place. In fact, as I told, Kamya is a classical dancer, and she
Right.
loves her hair. She really has long hair, and
Right.
I just didn't know how to manage it. So part of my
Obviously.
logistic planning was to have my wife along so that she can
Right.
manage her hair.
Very right. Oh, that's amazing. So we'll
So
come to that story, Kamya. How was that? After Stoke, the Stoke that I remember you telling me during the test call that all three of you had gone for Stoke. How was that experience? Three of a family going to Stoke, big thing. How was it?
So Stoke was actually you can call it my dream climb, and I got to do it with my mom and my dad. And originally the plan was that my mom would come to the base camp to take care of me, and then me and my dad would go on the summit and come. But when we went to the base camp, my mom said that if I've come this far, I might as well do the summit. And it was great to summit the peak as a family.
No, obviously, it's a big thing. As I was telling, we had a very difficult time on Stoke. In fact, one of our doctors, she couldn't climb because the weather was getting packed up and we had to rush back. And after that, she could do Kun very easily, Next expedition, we did 7,000. And there's a hell lot of difference between 6,000 and 7,000. And Stoke, I'm sure that must
what
be
makes
great
so
learning.
difficult is actually the long summit walk.
Summit walk. Yes.
Right.
The base camp is at 4,600, and then you have the summit at 6,150. So
Correct.
it's 1,550 meters of climb.
Climb.
So without a support camp in between. So that makes it
Correct.
all the more difficult. A lot of people, experienced mountaineers, advise me on the mountain at the base camp, not to try it.
Yeah, I'm sure, I know a lot of people who have done Everest and they've not been able to do Stoke in winters.
In fact,
it's pretty easy.
my wife's experience on Stoke was more interesting than Kamya.
Ma'am, let's hear it then. Why not?
See, basically, like she said, I was to only go to the base camp, but in the evening,
Right.
since I was okay, I joined them for the acclimatization walk till the advanced camp which existed once before. They take you
Right.
up till there for the acclimatization and get back. So I
Right.
went to there and I came back and I told my husband, I think I'm okay to go further. So I took a promise from him, and then he was encouraging, saying, if you can reach the shoulder which you see, then the
Yeah.
trek is done. So that way he tricked me into, trying it. So
Okay.
I said, okay, I'll probably attempt. And I told him wherever, I'll mark my way. And I'm sure there are enough people walking back with the speed that we will be climbing with a 9-year-old. So
Right.
wherever, I am not comfortable, I'll try and turn back and I'll be safe. Don't worry about me. You carry on with Kamya. So initially he said, okay. And then we started. But all my treks, so initially, it is more of a mother's instinct, which was my strength than the physical stamina. It was more of a mental strength, which made me a trekker and a climber later. So
Right.
I kept climbing her. We reached the ridge, and beyond the ridge, he told it is just flat. So, you can start walking. It is just around the corner, but it is actually not. So it's
Yeah.
just about 200 meters ahead of the summit. I told him, I need some energy to, return back to
Go
the
for.
base camp. At this
Right.
rate, if I exhaust myself, I don't think, I'll be able to reach back. So
Right.
let me, out of the rope, I want to go back. And he said, you take a call, but, what impact will that have on Kamya? Think about it
Right.
for a minute and then make a decision. So
That's blackmailing.
yeah, that turned the entire thing out. And
True.
finally, one step at a time, like how mountaineers do it, I could reach the summit. So that was a big learning for me, because I never thought, I had that kind of an endurance in myself. So you
Obviously, ma'am.
really
And we
need
were,
to underestimate your endurance and your capacity. So that was actually an eye opener for me.
of course. So after Stoke, how did it all change? When did you think you'll do 7 summits and international peaks? Kamya, let's hear it from you. What was the motivation for doing other things after Stoke?
So while coming down, I came down with a guide, and I reached the camp about 1 hour before my parents when we were coming down from Stoke. And when my mom came back to the camp, she looked for me, and I was already eating my Maggie, and I was solving Sudoku. So my
Right.
dad came and asked me that do you realize that you've climbed higher than the highest peaks in 5 of the world's 7 continents?
Right.
So that's how we evolved the idea of doing the 7 summits.
Right.
But I've finished my skiing courses, my basic to advanced skiing courses from Gulmarg, and
Wow.
we thought we'd add it to the 7 summits, and we thought that we do the Explorers Grand Slam, which is basically climbing the 7 summits and skiing to the north and south poles.
Wow.
So yeah, that's how we
So
got.
easy.
Yeah.
And you make it sound so very easy. It's so grand.
She,
Great. I mean,
he made it sound exactly like that when we came back from the summit of Stoke.
no, it looks so easy. Anybody listening to this would say, "यार, ठीक है, हम भी कर सकते हैं." Actually, it's not. I'm sure. So, which was the first peak you decided after Stoke?
So the first peak which I did was Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa.
Right.
So it was very interesting how we got to do Kilimanjaro, because we were in Hyderabad to participate in the duathlon there, and that's when we got a call from Shekhar Babu, who was the mentor
Okay.
for Purna Malawat,
Right.
and he had heard about me, and he congratulated me on the climb for Stoke.
Right.
And interestingly, we were leaving the same day, so he came, met us at the railway station just before our train left, and he said that he had a team that was going to Kilimanjaro that October, and
Right.
he offered that we could join the team to climb. So
Wow.
that's how we got to climb Kilimanjaro. And Kili was a very good experience for me, because
Because Papa wasn't there, only Mama.
no.
So Kilimanjaro you went without Commander Karthik, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I couldn't get the permission to travel that fast. Like the
Right.
duathlon was sometime in mid-September or something, or early October, and Mr. Shekhar Babu's team was leaving in mid-October. So
Right.
I couldn't get my permissions that early to travel abroad.
Obviously.
So again, it was my wife who stood up to the occasion and
Right.
told that, yeah, I will go along with Kamya and climb.
Wonderful. So Kilimanjaro, and after that, what was your decision? Which expedition after Kili?
After Kili, we got to do Elbrus in Europe. So
Okay.
Elbrus is also a dormant volcano like Kilimanjaro, but it was it was more difficult because it's more up north and it's colder.
Right.
So and we had a lot of struggles even during the before the climb to organize equipment for me.
Right. Tell us about that story. We want to hear that out. Elbrus, what was the difficult part?
So we reached the city called Minranil Bodhi, and from there we go to a small town called Azau where the climb actually starts.
Right.
And I wanted to put my skiing skills to use again, and I wanted to ski down from the summit. So
Wow.
we were actually looking for touring boots, which I can climb up with and then just attach to my skis and come down.
Right.
But we looked for them in all the shops in Azau, but we couldn't find anything that that would fit me. And finally, we had to settle for a snowboarding boot. We couldn't even find a climbing boot,
My
and
God.
and another skiing boot. So I had to go up to the summit and then change into my skiing boots and ski down. So I was
Wow.
actually changing my
Can
shoes on the summit.
on summit. But then why did you think that this would be a good idea to ski down from Elbrus? Because you were doing first time Elbrus and still you thought you would ski down. How did that idea came to your mind?
So I was before the climb, we were studying about Elbrus, and we learned that it was a skiable peak, and I just wanted to try it. It was just a fascination, I guess.
But did they mention skiable peak for a certain age group or
Uh,
everyone? Because it's not possible, I mean, for everyone to do. How old were you once you did Elbrus?
10, yeah.
10, huh? So 10-year-old skiing down from Elbrus. Amazing. You make it sound so easy.
No, we have been breaking a lot of rules in many places.
No, but why didn't you stop her? Skiing down Elbrus.
We had
Amazing,
actually
parents.
qualified the advanced skiing course, and we said, probably we should try that skiing skills. And
So the best part about doing all these expeditions is that you get to learn, you get to read about what you're going to do, and that
Right.
expands your horizon a lot.
I'm sure.
Being a mountaineer at that time, even I didn't know that Elbrus was a skiable peak. It was only
Yeah,
when we
sure.
started doing the research that we found out that it's a skiable peak. And okay, if you need to ski, then what do you need? You need touring boots. Though we were already skiing in Gulmarg for probably 3 years by then, we didn't know that we could have touring boots, which could help you climb a peak and ski down
Ski
without
down.
changing your boot. Skiing will always mean a very, very hard boot on your ankle and walking like a duck
Correct.
when you need to walk. But it
Obviously.
was a good learning. We learned that there is something called a touring boot, and you could walk up with it with your skis on your feet.
Right.
But unfortunate that we could not find a boot of her size. That has been a big struggle all through till now, finding a
especially
boot of her
not knowing
size.
the language.
Yeah, I'm sure this boot is one aspect. There will be so many other things which are not made for children like this and for expedition. So that's an understatement if you're saying this is
And
more
we
for-
needed to have a guide who could guide her in skiing down.
correct.
To find an English-speaking guide while climbing Elbrus is possible, but to find a guide who would, speak English, also help you to ski down, and ready to take a 10-year-old, that was a
I'm
big.
sure, obviously nothing is easy. Okay, Kamya, after Elbrus, what next?
So after Elbrus, we decided to do Kosciuszko, which is in Australia.
Right.
So Kosciuszko is it's a small peak. It's just a one-day hike to go up and down.
Right.
So we went to Canberra from Sydney, and we got a car from one of our acquaintances there.
Nice.
And my mom actually drove 240 kilometers to a small town called Thredbo, from where the climb actually starts. So
Okay.
although Kosciuszko is a short peak, it's not very high in altitude. But what made it more difficult was actually the wind conditions, because there was like a really strong winds, and on the day we summited, actually there was just two of us who summited, because everyone else had turned around because of the winds.
Oh my
So we even tried to take a selfie, but we ended up breaking my mom's phone.
God. Good memories now, huh? Great. So tell us about Aconcagua, because I'm sure there are a lot of stories. The moment we were discussing earlier, take us through that expedition.
So before Aconcagua, we we had a choice whether to do Aconcagua or Denali, and
Okay.
we chose to do Aconcagua before because even the mountains in Argentina have similar conditions to Leh. It's also a cold desert.
Right.
So
Okay.
we thought that we could, do a practice climb before going to Aconcagua.
Okay.
So we climbed Mount Stokangri because of
Okay.
two reasons.
No.
Mentor Kangri, sorry.
Mentor Kangri.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay. Come on.
So mainly because of two reasons. Firstly, to practice for Aconcagua in those situations,
Right.
and secondly, Aconcagua only me and my dad would be able to go. So it was like a time where my dad could train himself to take care of me.
Especially.
Yeah, especially my hair. So
Obviously, yeah.
and we actually we went to Mentor Kangri, and we had to do everything ourselves. Only we were the only people on the mountain, and
Okay.
we had to arrange for a guide and carry our own food, do load ferries, set up the camp. So
Right.
that was a new learning experience for me.
Right.
And we actually finished the climb earlier than we had expected. So we came back to Leh, and we thought that we'd just sit around for a week and enjoy. But after 2-3 days, we got restless because we hadn't done anything. So
Right.
we were just talking to my mom, and she suggested, "Why don't you take rent out cycles and go cycle to Kardangla and come?"
Kardungla. Oh,
So
such a good utilization of time, huh? Amazing. Very nice.
so
Yeah, we've seen that picture, the one Karthik has shared with the bikes on Kardungla. Because people find it difficult to walk there, and cycling there with the bike, too difficult.
Yeah,
Right, Karthik.
I had been to Kardungla many times. The first time I went, it was on a car. The second
Right.
time I went, it was on a bike. And then third time I went, it was on a cycle.
Okay.
So,
Right.
but she was so lucky she could experience cycling up there so early in her life.
Yeah, that's true. I remember 2015 was the first time I went to Leh, and leave alone Khardungla, Leh itself, I was feeling, so restless and so accomplished that I've reached Leh 2015. Amazing. That's what children can do.
And Mentor
Yep.
Kangri gave us a lot of confidence.
Okay.
Crossing that 6,000 barrier for a second time.
Right.
And this time, like every time Kamya has gone on high altitude, the summit day used to be, I used to keep my fingers crossed because you start so early in the morning, and she's half in her sleep.
Correct.
To come out of the sleep was very difficult for her.
Yeah.
And invariably, every time it has been in Rukund, it has been on Stoke, it has been on Elbrus, on Kili. After she steps out on the summit climb, in about within a half an hour's time, she would throw up.
Oh.
That's it. It's jitters.
And that's at such high altitude in the middle of the night. It can shake up anybody who's with you.
Obviously, I've seen senior 30, 40-year-old people doing it, and then you panic. For a
Yeah.
child to do that, your own child, I'm sure
So,
it's not easy.
that's why I always keep my fingers crossed. But I knew that she wasn't having high altitude sickness.
Okay.
The way she
Right.
behaves, the way she is still composed after it's like a wake up call for her, throwing up.
Right. Got it.
And then she would continue on the climb, and she would do it, really well. So I wanted to check her on the 6,000 meter region again before we went on Aconcagua, because Aconcagua is a big undertaking. You're committing to a real big mountain. It's 6,962 meters.
Correct.
So Mentor Kangri gave us a lot of confidence. So that's how we decided, we will go to Aconcagua this year.
But Aconcagua was a different challenge. Expedition was one, logistics and other things that we were discussing was other one. Just quickly go through what was the challenges apart from the initial part.
Yeah, most of the mountains are climbed halfway or even beyond before you step to the base camp also.
Right.
it's the logistics and the administration that you need to really put together for any big
True.
client. Aconcagua had its own challenges. First thing is it's halfway across the globe.
Right.
Nobody in the country speaks English. It's all in Spanish. Even
Right.
getting the visa was a major hassle.
Okay.
Luckily, we are in Bombay and they have an embassy here. So
Okay.
we could tie up for visa and things like that. You need to appear physically for a visa. You need
Right.
to use so many papers in Spanish. And
True.
we were going to climb Aconcagua. She's just 12. So they needed undertakings from us,
Right.
both parents, and we needed to certify it from Ministry of External Affairs in India,
Oh,
and submit it in, with the Aconcagua National Park authorities. So
Right.
we did all this learning. We did the entire process. Took all the effort to get permission for me from the Navy to travel abroad.
right.
Managed all the finances.
Right.
Trained her all this while we were doing all this, we were training ourselves.
Obviously.
And Bombay doesn't have that kind of a terrain for us to train.
Correct. Obviously.
So every weekend we would spend in the Sahyadris. So doing all that, we finally made it all work. And on the 1st of Jan, we took the flight to Aconcagua.
Okay.
We landed in Argentina and on 3rd, after 2 days of flying. And the first thing that we hear from a lawyer in Argentina is that there is a slight tweak that has happened in the rules for issue of permits. And now the National Park authorities needed us to go to a court in
Okay.
Argentina and get their permission for Kamya to climb Aconcagua.
Oh, that was because of the age.
Last year, till then, the National Park authorities, with whatever papers we submitted, could have given us an approval.
Okay.
But last year, it seems one of the minor climbers, a 13-year-old boy, he had to be evacuated in emergency from the Aconcagua
Expedition.
camp.
Right.
So the National Park authorities didn't want to take any more chances.
Right.
So they wanted us to go to the court and get their permission.
Correct.
So okay, we thought, right, we were here and we had to climb. So we went to the court, and the court asked us, why are you here with us? Because they have not handled a case like this in the past decade.
Correct.
So the judge didn't know what to do. Like mountaineering, 12-year-old, national park rules, and high altitude sickness, evacuation, all
Right.
this were new to her. So she just didn't want to take the case. So we had to apply in a higher court in Argentina. It's like going to the high court
Right.
in India. So we went to the higher court, and they were convinced. They told the lower court, the family court, to take up the case finally. But the red tape and bureaucracy is just like how it is in India.
Okay.
The judge would tell us, you should get a certificate from a child heart specialist.
Okay.
We would get the certificate. Once it was there, she would tell, okay, now please get a certificate from a sports medicine specialist.
Oh,
Once that was there, she would tell us, okay, please get a certificate from a child psychologist.
oh my God.
So things were going in circles, and we were supposed to leave on the expedition on the 7th of Jan, and it was already 14th of Jan, and we were still sitting in the city and not knowing whether we'll be able to climb.
True.
But luckily, on the 15th of Jan, the judge changed.
Okay.
They say if you want something so desperately, the entire universe conspires to give you what you want.
Of
And
course.
the new judge who came in happened to be a mountaineer himself.
Oh, lucky you. Lucky guys. Huh?
He had all the papers that we required to climb.
True.
So we got the permit. We went on to the climb.
Just one sec. Amit, Amit, can you have muted? Yeah, go ahead, Kamya. Karthik.
Yeah, so after that, we went on the climb, and rest is all for Kamya to say.
Yeah, tell us about the climb. Again, a very difficult situation.
The climb was, we finally set out and we were all really happy. And we had a new team.
Okay.
And the first day we went to, a camp just before the base camp. And we had an acclimatization, and finally we reached the base camp. And from there we had load ferries, and after I think 8 days we reached camp 2. And we had a rest day at camp 2. And during that time the guides kept checking my vitals, my
Right.
oxy and everything. And there was also a Kankagua National Park Medical Services hut in camp 2. So
Okay.
that was the last medical checkup that you get before you go for the summit. And on the 10th day we started to go from camp 2 to camp 3, and camp 3 was our summit camp. So almost half an hour into the climb, it was a very windy day. And I was wearing thin gloves, so I started feeling cold. And I told my dad, so we stopped. And he was wearing a bit of thicker gloves. So we exchanged our gloves. And it was still getting cold, so I stopped a couple of times. And dad told me to keep punching my hands together and keep walking. But I still kept stopping because it was really windy.
Cool.
And finally we stopped a little, we stopped a few times. And the guide was already a bit apprehensive of letting me climb. And he said that she's stopping too much, you have to turn back. So
Okay.
we were trying to request them to let us climb, but they weren't ready to listen. So finally we had to turn back and come down to camp 2.
Okay.
The issue was that the guides were always apprehensive because 12-year-old girl climbing at that altitude, the guides were always apprehensive.
We don't blame them. I mean, the kind of things which are at those altitudes, everybody, oxygen is less.
Yeah, and their life is on their reputation, so they didn't want anything to go wrong in their watch.
True that.
So, the wind was so much; it was about 50 knots, and she's only about 40 kgs herself. So when you're traversing on the climb, when the wind is against you, it's really difficult to make headway.
Obviously.
So I tried to tell them that it's not that she's having trouble walking or she's exhausted, but they wouldn't listen, and they wanted a chance to send us back. They in fact went to such an extent that they told, if you don't go back, we are going to go to call the National Park Police now.
Oh.
So
Right.
we walked down to the next camp, camp 2, and but the only good thing that we did was we walked straight to the doctor's hut.
Okay.
And our guide was with us, so we requested the doctor to check our vitals. The doctor checked the vitals, and he told that they are better than what they were in the morning.
Oh, nice. Very good.
At that altitude of about 5,600 meters, when even my oxygen was about 71, 72, she was running 77. So she actually had no reasons to turn back. So they did clear her to climb up. We were just hoping that, okay, everything is going to come back to normal now. We are going to climb tomorrow.
Okay.
And that's when our guide comes in and says that, I'm sorry, you will have to go back to the base camp because I have sent the tents down.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So
So I'm sure it must have been very frustrating because you want to go up, but then you're not able to stay at that place also.
It was like a sine curve. We were really doing well all through the climb up till camp 2. And then suddenly on that day, the wind picks up and then we are forced to come down for no mistake. Then the doctor tells us, yes, now you can go up. When we're having hope, again, the guide walks in and tells that there are no more tents for you to stay in this camp, so you'll have to go down. So we went down to base camp again.
Okay.
So
Kamya, how was that feel? You wanted to go up, your body is supporting you, and then someone is forcing you to come down, and then the temps are also down. What was going on in your mind? It's very frustrating.
Yeah, like I was really upset because I knew that I could do it, but because someone else was apprehensive, we had to come down.
True.
But I went and I told my dad that if I had another chance, I would surely climb up and reach the summit.
Wow.
So yeah.
Great. And what happened next then?
So we came back to the base camp, and the base camp team was very helpful, and they gave us another guide so that we can go up again. And this time it was just me, dad, and the guide we had. And so he was a yeah.
Yeah, go ahead now.
So he was a really good guide, and he believed that I could actually reach the summit, and
Okay.
so we were actually stepping up, and we were going to climb again on the same day that the original team with whom we went till Camp 2 was coming back from the summit.
Right.
And there was an Everester who was part of the team, and he came and told me and dad just before we were leaving that it was a good thing that you turned back. It was really rough, and it was it was a really difficult climb. So
Right.
that let me down a little, but still we set out on the climb, and
It's very difficult, even for seasoned climbers.
Obviously, yeah.
You're on camp 2 and going to camp 3, and then you're forced to come down to base camp. Even I was
Exactly.
having doubts, running in my mind whether we will actually be able to make it to the summit this time. Is she going to be
Right.
very tired? Am I going to be very tired? Because you need to keep up with her. She keeps talking all through the climb.
Okay.
So,
Nice.
am I going to be, having that energy to be able to be with her? So all
Obviously.
the doubts were going on in the mind, and then this man walks in and tells me, "It's good that you didn't come on the summit. It was really, really windy, and it was very,
True.
We went to
it did put us in a back foot. Probably
Actually.
he just wanted to pacify us or pacify
Right.
Kamya that she could not
True.
sound. But
Yeah.
it did put us in back foot for a minute. But I was really happy the way she sprung back from there. It was a moment which told me that whatever we were doing, the experiment that we were probably doing with Kamya by making her climb all these mountains,
Right.
it wasn't going waste.
Obviously.
I could see the confidence in her. She came back and told Papa, we have come halfway across the world to climb this mountain. And we didn't come back because of our inability. And
Right.
here we have a chance to go up and try again.
That's why.
We should.
So that's what I always feel. Climbing is one part, but then the whole personality of a child, and even a child, the person who climbs, as this, you're not the same person who climbs any of the expeditions. Once you come back, the kind of experiences you've had, you can share it. So,
Yeah.
Kame, how was the climb after that? You could manage without
So,
any.
like the second time we went, the scenery had totally changed, and first it was just dry and windy, but
Right.
now along with the wind, we had a lot of snow, so there was a lot of fresh snowfall, and about so that just made it more difficult. But
Right.
we reached Camp 3 finally. It was very
Okay.
difficult, going through the same route again. You know how tough it's going to be.
I'm sure.
But we reached Camp 3, and finally we went on the summit climb, and so it was tough. It was long, but we finally reached there. And when we were coming down, we learned that our guide was also climbing after 2 years. It was his first summit after 2 years because
Okay.
he had had an accident, and he had been bedridden. But
Oh my God.
it was his first summit after the accident. So
nice.
yeah.
So probably we all came together who had some fire in us, different fires in all of us.
Of
And
course.
that's how things all worked out.
Very
And
nice.
she was used to that kind of a climb. The last day's climb was
Okay.
about 960 meters. And that's the main reason why the success rate on Aconcagua is so less. It's about 30 to 35%.
True.
The Westerners don't get to see this big a mountain at all.
Very right. That's
So,
absolutely.
but we are really lucky, you know, we have the Himalayas right in our backyard here in our country.
Yeah.
So I keep telling a lot of people that we should make trips to Himalayas. We are so lucky to be here in this country.
Absolutely. I remember we were doing Kun and there was a team which had come from abroad, international team, and that lady whole through the time she was telling me like, you guys are so lucky, and I was like, I couldn't relate it, but then once you interact with such people, that is the time you realize, the kind of provisions we have to climb, it's much easier, this kind of. So two things come to my mind, and I want you to answer, First is, no climb is easy, no expedition is easy. So what keeps you pushing, once you get totally tired, everybody gets tired. It's very natural. How do you push yourself to take the next step, which is not easy? What goes in your mind?
So, I mentioned before, after the first trek itself, I was hooked to climbing, and it's always, it's not like a very tough thing for me. It's more like a family vacation where we all get to spend time together, without mobile phones or other stuff which keep us distracted. It's just spending time with each other for however long the expedition is.
I think I need to cut this part of the video for the final recording because otherwise people would not believe it. It's too difficult to believe. If you find it so easy. Okay, next question I want to know is, how does it feel once you're there on top of any of the expedition? Because, for me, that's the thing, which makes me forget what are the hardships are gone. How do you feel once you're there on top of Elbrus or Aconcagua? That kind of feel, if you can express.
So, a lot of people, feel that you feel really high or something. But what I felt after all my climbs, when you reach the summit of a higher mountain, it's basically it makes you feel how small you are compared to the mountain, and you actually become more humble. And I also feel that it depends if it's a low Himalayan trek or a high peak, because when you're on a higher peak, there are lots of stuff that we're thinking about. That we have to return and what are the weather changes. So most of the enjoyment and realization is only after we come back to the camp. But when you're on a lower Himalayan trek, then all through the journey you can enjoy because it's not that difficult, and you have more energy and you can look around and enjoy more.
Great. I mean, great thing because frankly, once I was your age, 12, I didn't know the spelling of mountaineer also. Mountain I still would have guessed it, but then mountaineer, and I cannot imagine the kind of experience you would have had at this age. It's at 12 you have experienced so many things which people all through their life they don't have. So amazing experiences. Apart from mountaineering, other things you've been doing as well, and you've been able to do well in other fields as well. How do you manage that? Tell us about other journey of yours into Bharatnatyam, into academics, Talbiya, whatever. Just go through that.
I mentioned before, my in school, my father was more athletically inclined, and my mother was more into the cultural arts. So I got a bit of both. So I've thankfully been able to do everything. I'm learning Bharatnatyam and piano and guitar and Carnatic music, and I've been doing pretty well in my academics as well. And it's a popular belief that when you're into sports you can't focus on your academics and other stuff, but I feel that when you're into sports and adventure, it brings a lot of discipline and focus, and because of that I've been able to focus on everything and do well in everything. And it's mostly about scheduling your time and making time for everything. So my parents helped me make a Excel sheet, which is a timetable for the whole day, and I just follow it and I get time for everything.
No, that's true, and I'm sure all those parents who are listening, you must understand that whatever is being said actually holds true. It's not that only academics is going to take you anywhere. it's the whole personality, and your performance in academics goes up once you get involved in other things as well. So hats off to the parents who are giving you such experiences at such young age, right? So next thing I'm intrigued, once I was tagging you on Instagram, there was Kamya Sahas. What is that Sahas project? What is that thing? Please throw some light on that.
My mission of completing the Explorers Grand Slam, we decided to name it Sahas. You want to share it? So basically, Sahas, we chose it because it literally means adventure in Sanskrit. And my logo was also designed. It has the face of a woman, and the 7 summits and 2 poles are shown in the logo itself.
Wow.
So basically, what we wanted to do was, when we realized that she had the potential, we thought we should give her some kind of a thing to catch on to.
Right.
And so we designed a logo. We gave it a name. You can keep a mission in your mind.
Correct.
That I want to climb the 7 summits and I want to go to the poles. But the moment you give it a figure and you put your focus that, okay, this is what I want to do, it's very easy to focus. And once you have the focus, then your motivation keeps going on automatically. So that's what we did. We gave it a name, we gave it a figurine, and she's already finished 4 of the 7 summits, 3 more to go, and the poles.
Okay, then what is next after this thing? Aconcagua, Elbrus, what next you're planning?
The current situation has thrown a lot of questions and challenges.
Right.
But nevertheless, when you have a goal and your plan doesn't work, the only thing that you do is, shift your plan. So the goal still remains. We would have liked to do something big this summer, but the summer is gone. So the next thing is the winters, which happens to be summer in Antarctica. So the best that we are hoping for is to travel to Antarctica in December or Jan, and do the South Pole and Vinson Massif. Maybe do North America and the North Pole next summer in May and July.
Right.
And hope to do Everest in 2022. If
Wonderful.
She gets to do all this as per this plan, then she would have finished the Explorers Grand Slam at 14 years.
Amazing,
2022. So that would be a big feather on the cap. But we didn't start out to set records or with any set aims. We started out enjoying ourselves, and that is what I'm sure we will continue doing. If not, we would travel to Gulmarg in January or December and ski. If not Gulmarg, we would travel to the Sahyadris and climb.
We basically need to go to some mountain to refuel ourselves, so that will
Right.
So the adrenaline is pumping. That is for sure. How it is going to manifest, whether as Antarctica or as skiing or as a trek in the Sahyadris, that is for the time to see. And we are hoping that everything will turn out good from the current situation.
True. And I can see, everybody is so concerned about pandemic. Everybody is getting frustrated. How do Kamya, you manage to stay fit and focus, because you have got such huge challenges in front of you? How do you train for that and mentally focus on that aspect?
We've been given specific hours which are allotted for walking outside, and otherwise, we're not allowed to go outside. We're not allowed to run or cycle. And so sometimes I go on walks, just to relax. And otherwise, we have a set of exercises which we keep doing in rotation at home. Or alternately, I live in a 15-story building, so we climb up and down about 15 to 20 times.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That's the reason I can see smiles on faces, because otherwise, whomsoever I interact these days, they're so pessimist and so much of negativity all around. The thing which keeps you moving is the reason you're so positive.
We need to come out strong at the end of the lockdown.
I'm sure.
It's only a matter of time.
Obviously,
You know,
and the way you're
yeah.
doing,
And just to put in perspective, many of the viewers, they might not realize what she just mentioned. It's
I'm
a
sure.
15-story building and 15 to 20 times. So that means 300 stories. That is twice the height of Burj Khalifa.
No, that's what I mean. Even we find difficult. I'm on the fourth floor. I'll go once and then I'll say, that's okay. But then the kind of challenges you have in front of you,
You have to keep it.
amazing. Lot of hard work. Okay, Kamya, your message. Generally I ask people who are 40, 50-year-old, 60-year-old, your message for people. What is Kamya's message? A 12-year-old friend of ours. What do you want to share with the viewers?
So when my dad was first climbing Stoke Kangri, we used to go to Mr. Sonam Bangyal, who is the in charge of IMF, and he issues the permit for climbing Stoke. And we used to frequent his house a lot of times, and every time he would take me into his apple orchard, pluck me apples, and tell us stories. Like he had
Wow.
really many stories. He was part of the first Indian Everest expedition of 1965. So, we learned that the most important part of climbing or doing any adventure is to, collect stories and memories so that you can
Right.
tell people.
So, that's amazing. Life is all about stories. Nobody really cares if you come first or second and all. It's just that you yourself, the kind of experiences you have lived all through your life, those matter. And Kamya, amazing journey. And I mean, we don't have words to even thank you for the kind of things you have done. Karthik, anything which you want to add? You think I've missed out? Please go ahead. I'm surely would have missed out so many things. Anything you want to add? Please go ahead.
No, like Zisha said, stories are all the things that you go to the mountains for. So we can keep talking stories over hours. The time is limited, and it's only we are already 10 minutes late from the schedule.
Fine. But
But
the kind
one
of things
thing-
she had to share. Please go
Yeah,
ahead.
but the one thing that we want to spread through Sahas is that we as Indians we restrict our options. Girls can't go to the play field. They can't keep fit. They can't do this. They can't do that. I'm ashamed, but at one point of time, even I felt that I should have a son so that I could live all my dreams through him. But it all changed when I had a daughter. So we surely want to spread this message through Sahas that we Indians should engage more in the outdoors, especially the girl children, and try to be more fit and more adventurous.
And like most of the journey, it is me and my daughter who traveled across, not just in our country but even abroad, that we travel all alone. So it is, I think, more on the way we think, the way we take up challenges in life. So it is safe if you calculate all parameters and take risks. So I think ladies and especially mothers should step out and take on the lead, not just depend on the fathers for outdoors and groom their daughters. Be their example, actually.
Absolutely. So thanks so much, Commander Karthik, Kamya, ma'am. I mean, amazing journey. This 1 hour was wonderful. I mean, we got to learn so many things. And thanks to all the viewers for taking the time and listening to us. Milan, thank you so much, buddy, for recording. Messed up a bit. There are a lot of good comments which have come up. I'm sure you can go through it. A lot of them. Everybody is very, very appreciative. Has to be, the kind of things you have shared. Not everybody gets to do all these things. We wish you all the very best in the times to come. All the viewers, stay safe, stay healthy, and best of luck. Karthik, Kamya, and ma'am, take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for making a platform where so many things are shared. We have been regularly following Passion Talks. So many people that we have been able to come across because of the platform that you have created for us. Hope we are also able to motivate a few.
Many of them.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, guys. Bye-bye. Good night. Jai Hind.